Welcome to Confessions of a Frustrated Game Master. I am Robert, the narrator, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Confessions. Well, this episode of Confessions, I'm going to answer the question if player agency is overblown in our hobby. And I got inspired to make this video from a video that Jason over at Roleplay Cafe did. It's not really a video response because I agree with most of what he said, but there are some parts that we prioritize differently. So let's talk about that. If player agency in our hobby is overblown. I'm going to give you a little bit of background before I answer the question. Now, I've been in the hobby for a long time. When I started, I was a much younger man, and in those times, of course, when you're younger, time is pretty much your own. Though in those days when I first started in the hobby and was very new to the hobby, I had 2 stable games a week. Those were the golden years for me in the hobby. And as I got older, and of course you get more responsibilities, I would have a stable, steady game, 1 game a week. And those were really fun times. One of the best memories I have is going over to a friend's apartment on a Friday afternoon, and he lived in kind of university housing. So it was kind of a frat house, and it was a huge living room, and each of the players had their own sofa, and we all had our own 2 liter, and we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we were playing high level characters, so we didn't always have to be together like we were a party because we had other responsibilities like kingdoms or wizards towers or whatever that we were running. So we played from Friday afternoon that weekend to Sunday morning. Players would go to sleep for a couple of hours, wake up, and hey, where's my character? What am I doing? It was really an incredible time. Those days are long gone, and that's kind of what the focus of this channel is, talking about how things have changed since I've become an OG in the hobby, an original gamer or a frustrated game master. That's what this channel is all about. But how does that pertain to preparation and player agency, which was the subject of the video that Jason did over at Roleplay Cafe? Well, not much to disagree with or to prioritize differently from what Jason talked about as far as preparation. But what I will say is I prep just like he does. I come up with an overarching theme. I prep parts, not plans. So I prep the set piece battles, the conflicts, whether they be interaction or physical combat or whatever the player characters turn it into, because it's quite possible that the players could turn what was initially going to be a physical altercation into an interaction conflict. So that's all really up to them, talking about a little bit of player agency there. But I think what Jason and I prioritize differently is that I really today think that the conversation that we always have around player agency and tabletop role-playing games is over-exaggerated and overblown. And this is what I mean. So talking about my background of having plenty of time to play, and now as an adult, I don't. Back in those days, even when I was playing a lot, when I sat down at your table, my expectation was that the game master was treating the game as seriously as I was. So when I sit down, even when I had plenty of time to play and was playing 2 games a week, I still wanted to feel like the GM had made preparations. Now, if you are a GM who is so good that you could sit down with little to no prep and make me feel like you have spent time preparing something that we as players are going to enjoy and making it exciting for us, fine. But not a lot of GMs can do that. And I really have always been the type of person who I hate my time to be wasted. So when I sit down at your table, I want something, I would prefer that at least you make me feel like you have prepared something. So that being said, that extends to my expectation that the other players at the table are not going to waste my time by going off on side missions, slowing the game down, doing all they can to move away from what the GM has prepared, because it makes the GM have to think quick on their toes to make things up. And unless the GM is really good at that, it really lessens the or can lessen the quality of what the GM is putting in front of us. And I feel personally like that is a waste of my time. I have personally never understood the fascination that some players have if the adventure, if what the GM has planned is to the left, they want to go to the right. I've never understood that. And as I have gotten older, and if I'm lucky, I have maybe can play one time every 3 to 6 weeks and that's if I'm lucky. I want the best experience that I can get when I sit down to play. So that is why I say I think that player agency is overblown. Why do you want the agency to throw a monkey wrench in what the game master has planned? Now, I'm not saying that if a player has a good idea or if the player does something to solve an issue that is in front of them that the game master did not expect, that the game master should thwart the player's good thinking. As a matter of fact, I probably, as a game master, want to over reward my players when they're thinking and when they come up with things that I didn't consider. But when I say throw a monkey wrench in the game master's plans, when the player characters are in the tavern and the NPC job giver comes over to give us the adventure, someone saying, nah, I'm not interested, and walking away, why would you do that? Why would you want that level of player agency? Especially in the circumstance that I am in, where I don't get a chance to play a lot. I want a smooth, prepared experience, and I want to get the best out of the game master that I can. So I don't want him to have to improvise and maybe not be on the top of his game because we decided to ignore what he's prepared and go wandering off somewhere else. I don't understand it, and that is why I think that the one reason that I think that player agency is overblown. The second reason I say that player agency is overblown, aside from the fact that I want a great experience and I don't have a lot of opportunities to play, unless your game master is really, really, really bad at even making semi-interesting conflicts or encounters, when the player characters do stumble into what the game master has planned, there is so much player agency in how you can solve the encounter or conflicts. It makes me wonder how important player agency, the ability to go right when you were supposed to go left, how important is it? Because there are so many opportunities for player agencies and players to make decisions when they do come across the encounters that the game master has planned. Just to give you an idea, when I ran my game Peace the RPG several weeks ago, the first encounter was a stampede of animals that were endangering a caravan. And what I imagine, there was only, to be honest with you, there was only one NPC who was in danger. And I had imagined that the player characters would rush forward to pull the NPC to safety. The NPC was deaf and did not hear or see the stampede coming. because he was really preoccupied with something. And I had imagined that the player characters would rush forward and pull him to safety, athletics check, and we're done. What the player characters actually did, spurred on actually by Jason from Roleplay Cafe, he was playing in the game. He was playing an Elven Ranger who had really, really great ability to affect and manipulate natural animals. He stepped in front of the stampede and was able, with his ability to manipulate the emotions of animals and to communicate to a great extent with them, being an Elven Ranger, was able to convince the stampede or the lead animal to go off course so that everyone was safe. And he had great help from Dell, who cast a spell which also lowered the creature's composure so they would be more amenable to doing what they had to do, what the player characters needed them to do. So that was something that I didn't even think about. So that is a fantastic example of how if you just go with the adventure, when you get to the encounters that are planned, you have plenty of player agency as to how to solve the particular issue or how to handle the particular encounter. Again, as I said, unless the game master is really awful at making dynamic encounters where they can only be solved one way, players have plenty of agency with once they get to their destination. So why exercise all of your player agency to thwart the journey to the destination? So that is why I think that all of the conversation around player agency is overblown. Now, I can understand, excuse me, if you are playing 2-3 times a week, or you have a solid game and you constantly play, I can understand players being really into player agency. You know, they may have they play so much that someone throwing the GM off by going left going right when they were supposed to go left is more forgivable. I guess if when you're playing a lot, having a couple of clunker sessions really isn't that important, but it's important to me. But I understand the idea that, hey, if you play a lot, your player characters' smallest whims become incredibly important to you, because, hey, if you ruin this session, there'll be 10 other sessions after that. I also understand that for players who play with their characters' beliefs, goals, and motivations being really important to them, if the GM throws something or an adventure or an encounter in front of you that your character would never participate in, is morally opposed to, then I can understand kind of throwing the GM's plans aside, because you're playing a character and you have expectations and that character has beliefs, and it may not match up with what the GM is trying to put in front of you. So again, I'm not saying that you should not play your character if playing your character is going to throw the GM off, but I think that you definitely don't want to be that guy where that's what my character would do, and you're destroying the game. I think that if everyone has sat down and said, we're going to play our characters, we're going to stick to our motivations and beliefs, and I'm not going to participate in something that my character wouldn't participate in, then that is fine. But that definitely has to be a conversation you have long before your character's decision ruins the game's session for that night. So I am completely sympathetic to that, but I really, really believe that we all know why we are sitting at the table. We all know that we're here for adventure. We all know that we're playing characters in a fantasy or sci-fi game. So why throw the game by exercising some false sense of player agency by trying to throw the adventure that the GM has planned off and going in the wrong direction? So that is what I think about the conversation around player agency. What do you think? Do you think it's legitimate that a player would want the GM's best ideas at the table, even if that means going in the direction that the GM wants, railroading? Do you think it's legitimate that player agency may be overblown because players overlook the fact that once they do engage with what the GM has planned, there are so many options of generally how to deal with conflicts or encounters that all players do during those moments is exercise player agency. So what do you think? Put some comments below. As normal, my high fantasy tabletop role-playing game, Peace the RPG. I have the basic edition PDF in the description below, as well as a fillable hero sheet. So please check that out. Thank you for checking out this video. Robert, the narrator here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are watching this video. Talk to you later.